And without further ado, please welcome our first
thought leader.
He wears a hat. That's the only clue we'll give you.
And cool pants.
Please welcome Brock Pierce. Woo! Hello.
Hi, Brock. Thank you for being here with us.
Yes, thank you.
Puerto Rico, the Latin American island under U.S. control, is sinking under the weight of billions of dollars in unmanageable debt. Without any political sovereignty, its future is shaped by forces beyond its control.
Hurricane Maria slamming into the island, and as you heard, one official saying the island is destroyed.
Puerto Rican officials now say it's actually the deadliest storm for Americans in more than a century.
When Hurricane Maria struck in September 2017, it tore through the island's people and infrastructure, crippling an already fragile economy. In Maria's wake came devastation and despair. But for an emerging class of nouveau riche Americans, the hurricane brought a rising tide that lifted their yachts. In the years after the storm, a new kind of settler appeared on the island. Millionaires and billionaires enriched by 21st century technologies, particularly cryptocurrency. They saw Puerto Rico not as a place to rebuild, but as a sanctuary for their own prosperity, free from the burdens of taxation. To Puerto Ricans, the arrival of these wealthy outsiders is not progress. It feels disturbingly familiar, a new kind of colonialism, repackaged with the language of innovation and prosperity. They call it crypto-colonialism. In the middle of December, I arrived in Puerto Rico and was immediately struck by the stark contrasts unfolding in the northernmost reaches of San Juan, the heart of the capital. Luxury apartment buildings for incoming Americans were being constructed directly beside dilapidated homes of local Puerto Ricans. In the port, I came across the largest yacht I'd ever seen. The name Coro was painted on the vessel's stern. At the time, Puerto Rican social media was buzzing with speculation and theories about the boat and the intentions of its owner, one of the 5 richest men on the planet, Amazon founder and military intelligence contractor Jeff Bezos. The yacht is worth $500 million and requires more than 40 full-time crew to operate. Meanwhile, the average salary in San Juan hovers around $20,000. No one I spoke to seemed to know why Bezos' yacht was docked on their island, but that first day incident encapsulated a growing sentiment in Puerto Rico. Suspicion and distrust had become hallmarks of the mainstream political landscape, as wealthy American investors buy large swaths of land and take control of the island piece by piece. David Jose Medrano has seen the island change a lot since the arrival of these so-called crypto colonists. He's a professor and a city planner here in Puerto Rico.
We are now in the Luis Muñoz Rivera Park in Puerta de Tierra, nearby the Old San Juan. This park is one of the biggest and most appreciated parks in the city of San Juan, yet it has suffered a lot during the past few years after Hurricane Maria, because infrastructure like this one that we can see right here is not being kept as it should, and right now it's abandoned and we're just sheltering from the rain at the moment.
While novel technologies and economic systems operating beyond government regulation are often hailed as liberating, it's the pioneers of these libertarian innovations who are increasingly emerging as the new colonizers of Puerto Rico.
Maybe 95% are American. There's a lot of people in tech, there's a lot of people in finance, and the kind of business and investors that are coming in are also interested on shifting and making changes on policy, and the disregard of tradition, the way of doing things, and the insistence on making themselves close to decision makers on the island has produced a lot of chaos. So investors it's pretty common that they are now friends with legislators, decision makers, and people in government, where this type of closeness does not seem well at all.
These foreign American investors who predominantly work in tech or finance have more political power than in Puerto Rico than Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, definitely. That sums it up.
A name that repeatedly surfaced in my conversations with locals was Brock Pierce, a crypto billionaire with a checkered past who moved to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. Pierce is a self-proclaimed visionary with a fortune in cryptocurrency.
I view life kind of like a game. I went into the options menu of the game of life, and I chose to play a different game.
He and his crypto associates nicknamed the island Puertopia, a utopian fantasy disguising a playground for the rich, built on the ruins left by the disaster. Pierce's story is one of reinvention, a child star in candy commercials, and an actor in Disney movies.
I'm totally upbeat.
He then co-founded Digital Entertainment Network, or DEN, a first-of-its-kind streaming platform that collapsed amid allegations of a sex abuse ring. Interpol found Pierce hiding out in Spain with a cache of weapons and thousands of images of child pornography. He denied the original sexual abuse allegations and quietly settled the claims. From the scandal, Pierce pivoted to power. He founded Internet Gaming Entertainment, or IGE, trading virtual currencies in games like World of Warcraft. Trump world Steve Bannon, then an investment banker, joined IGE as head of the company, securing $60 million from Goldman Sachs, but lawsuits and fraud investigations ruined the company. Yet even as Pierce's failures piled up, he managed to find a fortune. In the chaos of the early crypto boom, he was a pioneer, and was soon named one of the most wealthy people in cryptocurrency. In 2020, he plowed his money into a vanity run for US president, gathering 49,000 votes.
I'm Brock Pierce. I'm from Minnesota, born and raised. I've lived all over this beautiful nation, from California to Puerto Rico, and I'm running for president of the United States of America.
Now, in Puerto Rico, locals claim Pierce's crypto empire seeks to dominate everything: land, politics, and the island's fragile future. Puertopia is no dream for those in the way of the wealthy. And Pierce isn't just close to power centers in Puerto Rico. He's found himself in close proximity to some of the most influential figures on the international stage, especially those aligned with the US right wing in Israel. Here he is at the White House holiday party with Bibi Netanyahu, with the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, at the White House Hanukkah reception with Attorney General Merrick Garland. And here's Pierce with IDF personnel getting a personal tour of the October 7th aftermath in the south of Israel. And here he is, back in January, on a private bus to Donald Trump's inauguration, seated beside corruption scandal-stained New York Mayor Eric Adams. So why have so many wealthy Americans chosen Puerto Rico as a haven? The answer lies in the Commonwealth's Act 60. This law offers tax breaks that allow Americans to evade mainland taxes under the guise of economic development, a policy strongly opposed by Puerto Rican nationalists or independentistas.
Act 60, in a very big way, it's just skipping through democracy and skipping through the due process. I think that I have to start with the name. Brock Pierce is one of the investors that has become poster child for Act 20 and 22 and Act 60, specifically with crypto. It is a very common profile within the investors, people that just see the island as a blank slate and a place that you can come in and do whatever you want if you have the right connections.
The devastation wrought by Hurricane Maria, combined with this carefully constructed tax loophole, has transformed Puerto Rico into a playground for the crypto elite. They have been descending upon the island, snapping up vast stretches of property at prices no Puerto Rican can afford.
Last year, the Economic Development Department published a report that said that housing market in Puerto Rico increased 17% within 1 year. And they published that as an achievement, which is insane because it's not an achievement. It's 70% less access of local people to have housing.
This influx of powerful newcomers wielding outsized influence over local politicians has inadvertently breathed new life into the Puerto Rican Independence Party, a once militant and fiercely nationalist movement. Now, the party known locally as Independentistas is experiencing a revival, its calls for independence resonating in a way unseen for decades. Near the forefront of this resurgence is Adrian Gonzalez Costa, a lawyer recently elected as a senator for the Independence Party, which seeks to establish Puerto Rico as an independent country. Gonzalez welcomed us to the Independence Party offices, a site once riddled with surveillance equipment covertly installed by the police and the security services during times when the U.S. deemed the Independentistas a national security threat.
They had, surveillance here. This has been the same office since 1984 for the Puerto Rican Independence Party. Back then, this was impossible to happen here in this office because chances were that they were recording On this day, they had a meeting on the Capitol Center. Mr. Adrian Gonzalez made an interview with two journalists of the United States, and he was speaking of Act 22 and independence extensively for hours. If you see neighborhoods that historically were populated by, let's say, the rich people of the island, the locals, now they are populated by rich people who is not from the island, and they're displacing the local rich people. And the local rich people is displacing the medium class.
And at the very bottom of that chain are the poor people of Puerto Rico, who become homeless or leave the country. Puerto Rico has more than 50,000 locals leaving the island every year, and there's been a 30% decrease in the total population since 2017. In the latest Puerto Rican election, the Independence Party earned 33% of the vote. The current governor, who won the election, received 38% of the vote, making the Independence Party the second most popular party in Puerto Rico, up from 5th place in 2016. Locals ascribe this surge of nationalism to the outside forces taking away more of the island's land and sovereignty. These outside forces being American crypto colonists, but also PROMESA. PROMESA is a U.S.-imposed 7-member fiscal oversight board. Locals refer to it as the centerpiece of the U.S. economic occupation. PROMESA is in charge of Puerto Rico's public debt. It enforces austerity measures onto Puerto Rico and prioritizes repaying the territory's creditors, often U.S. corporations, at the expense of the island's economy, self-governance, and quality of life.
Because PROMESA is the Puerto Rican Oversight Management Emergency Stability Act. But those letters and makes a word PROMESA, which means promise. It's an offense to the Puerto Rican people. For example, they shut down 600 schools in 2017, and the public tuition in state college tripled in 1 year. They approved everything. So we're more a colony now than we were maybe on the 1900s, and that's part of how things are changing here politically, and why people are seeing the Puerto Rican Independence Party as an option to, to be out of this unfair system.
Since the imposition of PROMESA, Puerto Rico has become a theater of unrest, a turbulent landscape of student uprisings, teacher walkouts, and a groundswell of class-driven resistance, all of it aimed at defying the relentless march of U.S.-mandated austerity, a force as indifferent as it is devastating. Despite the mass displacement and growing wave of Puerto Rican nationalism, the wealthy Americans who have relocated to the island to avoid taxes insist their presence is a benevolent gift to the Puerto Rican people. We visited one of them in the sanctuary of his palm tree-encircled compound, far removed from the realities faced by the island's people.
Well, I'm Peter Schiff, and I have an asset management company, Euro Pacific Asset Management. We are at my house in Puerto Rico right now doing this interview. They're not displacing anybody. I think that a lot of left-wing politicians in the island want to use the people who came here for Act 60 as a scapegoat for the island's problems. There are some people that just don't like success, although they just don't like capitalism. This is the best thing Puerto Rico's got going for it.
Peter Schiff is an investor worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He's a prominent financial commentator who's not afraid to joust with opponents of his vision for a libertarian society.
All right, this is Peter Schiff, and I've come down here to Occupy Wall Street to represent the 1% and see if I can have a dialogue with the other 99%. It's not capitalism that has failed them, it's socialism.
Schiff lives with his family in the Dorado Beach Ritz-Carlton Reserve, a gated community situated on what used to be the Rockefeller family estate. He shares the neighborhood with celebrities and other affluent characters, including online influencer and celebrity boxing hustler Jake Paul.
The earliest crypto people are here because they heard me on Joe Rogan.
Well, you look good, dude. You look healthy. You look vibrant.
Well, I got a little bit of beard going. I've been living in Puerto Rico.
We were talking about that off air. Tell me about that. Like, what prompted that decision?
So they basically created these two laws, Act 20 and Act 22. You effectively double your income by moving there, practically.
Wow.
I mean, if you live someplace, don't you want a lot of wealthy businessmen to move into your neighborhood? There's nothing but positives from it. It's just, again, it's all socialists who don't even believe in capitalism, who are looking for a scapegoat or somebody to vilify. Some of that could even be racist. What is that? Is there fireworks out there? Somebody may be letting off fireworks.
I see them.
Can you see them?
Yeah, it's right here.
But how far away are they? Just pull it, I think. Twist. Yeah. Twist it and pull. So for Americans, this is our Dubai. This is, we can come here and pay very low taxes. Yeah, I mean, it's a good deal. That's why so many people have moved here. Plus, we got nice weather. So, and it's, it's a tropical island paradise. Here in my home, I have, I think, 4 full-time staff that I employ here. We go out, so there's a lot of economic activity that is generated.
Do you have any relationship with politicians here or the government?
There are a lot of people who have come here who are active in local politics. They'll host fundraisers or meet and greets, or they'll bring, hey, here's a good candidate that I like. They do get active. And I know there was a lot of people in my community that were big Trump supporters. A lot of them were for RFK supporters. And they, I remember getting a lot of events, for that. Not that many Kamala people.
6 miles away, or a 30-minute boat ride east of Puerto Rico, is the small island of Vieques. For over a half century, most of the island was not a paradise, but a battlefield. Until 2004, it was occupied by the US military and home to the Atlantic Fleet Weapons Training Area, a proving ground for bombs, missiles, munitions, depleted uranium, and chemical weapons. In the early 2000s, Vieques saw massive protests and various forms of direct action, which eventually proved successful in getting the US military to flee the island. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., along with civil rights leader Al Sharpton, were both arrested during protests against the US military occupation of Vieques. As you approach the island by boat, you don't see the Puerto Rican flag, but the Viequensen flag. There I met Lisa Rodriguez, a Vieques local whose parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents all grew up on the island.
Vieques is called the colony of the colony. We're actually an independent island that was taken over by Puerto Rico under Spanish rule. But really we should be like St. Croix, and we should be like, St. Thomas, that they're independent islands. All of the money that was offered for the military to do active bombing, it never came to our island. It went to the Puerto Rican government. So Viequenses never got anything out of it except for cancer, homelessness, death, and to this day, we're still having to go through it.
Vieques, once seized by Puerto Rico and now a de facto US territory, was first occupied and exploited by the US military, and now, without ever having a chance to recover or reestablish ownership of their lands, Vieques has become a playground for the crypto elite. For the people of the besieged island, it feels like the cycles of exploitation never end.
This area here was taken over by the military. This was the side that they used to do active bombing at. And they left, but we never got our land back. They gave it to Fish and Wildlife. They handed it from one, government agency and then gave it to another government agency, but you didn't really give the land back to the locals. Those gates that we just came through, at 6:30, those gates close. And if you get stuck in here, it's a $500 fine. So tell me where it's our land again.
What percentage of the entire island is closed off?
60 to 70%.
So it's most of the island. It says do not enter. And there's pictures of bombs here.
They say it's not cleaned up yet. Every now and then they have a tour, what's called a tour. They take a group of maybe like 15 or 20 just to see. Because supposedly they want to open like these areas The issue with that, there's never any locals. Where the Vieques is at, why are we not part of being able to see any of this? I signed up twice. They never called us.
So are you suspicious that it's more or less kind of like a future real estate tour?
We think so. Mr. Brock Pierce has bought land here, which many of us who are activists are dead set against it. He's been trying to buy the Vieques people. And those of us that know, we're like, he's trying to buy the community. That's what he's doing. They don't necessarily keep up with who he is, what he does, what he's all about. And before you know it, we have less land than what we have now.
After Hurricane Maria, Brock Pierce acquired one of the largest privately owned land parcels on Vieques, the former W Hotel compound. The property, closed since the storm, was purchased for a mere $18 million, a fraction of its pre-disaster value. Pierce acquired the property alongside Joseph Lipsey III, another American billionaire and beneficiary of Act 60, who relocated to Puerto Rico from Aspen, Colorado, after he and his wife were accused of giving cocaine and alcohol to minors. Following an ugly business dispute with Pierce, Lipsey gained control of the expensive beachfront land where the W is situated. The W has remained closed since Hurricane Maria, and any attempt to approach the property triggers a confrontation with security.
¿Quién es el dueño?
Joseph Lipsey.
Lipsey?
Yeah. Lipsey. Lipsey. Anyone filming here or taking photographs in the hotel without their authorization. If you get it, they give me a call. I'll be more than glad to allow you.
Pierce currently owns a much smaller hotel in Vieques called Hacienda Tamarindo. It was there in 2023 that Lipsey claims Pierce held him in a locked room with armed guards outside, attempting to force him to relinquish control of the W. Brock Pierce is only one of many 21st century tech pioneers using fortunes from blockchain and crypto to transform Puerto Rico. Hundreds of properties have been bought, reshaping an island already scarred by decades of U.S. military occupation. Graffiti around Vieques illustrates the local attitude towards the rapid changes.
In the beginning of the year, a couple of these turned up. The one in town, the mayor said, repainted, and within hours it was repainted. They chose this here because of the W. Because as you can see, that is Brock Pierce right there. And this was a form of protest. It's great, it's awesome.
Across the small island, beachfront property that belongs to indigenous Vieques and people is being targeted. Giant American compounds and mansions are being erected. Influential crypto colonists wield more power over the government than local residents, and so the state expropriates the land on their behalf. This land theft is being exacerbated by the fact that most Vieques and people lack formal titles to their properties, leaving them vulnerable to this type of dispossession.
So this land right here was the Arepa people. They've had this piece of land for generations. When I tell you generations, generations. Crypto billionaires wanted to buy it. Our community fought and fought and fought and fought. But as much as we tried to help, they got rid of them. So, nos venda la isla al mejor postor y nos debaje sin ningún poder. Which is basically, do not sell the land to the highest bidder and stop lowering, your standard of yourself. You see, Vieques belongs to us, something con orgullo, and basically it's almost like be proud of your roots.
It's been reported that Brock Pierce has told his friends he's considering building a munitions repository or a store of weapons in Vieques in case the locals ever decided to, quote, rise up against him. According to Lee, discussions are underway in Vieques about Pierce's interest in purchasing the closed former military zones, including the entire southern part of the island and its port. Locals are not able to enter these areas as they're now controlled by the U.S. government's Fish and Wildlife Services.
This is all Brock Pierce. That's who I'm talking about. All of that. I think that that's why he's trying to buy our people. So that if he tries to take over, the people won't lash out and fight and do all of that. I will tell you this. Vieques took out the Navy. And they didn't take it out being friendly. If he announces that he's getting half of these lands, there will be an uprising on this island once again.
It took a lot to stop the bombing. Years of protests, and specifically 1 year of civil disobedience of the people of Puerto Rico. More than 1,000 people was imprisoned. We faced the US Navy and we won. Even when they have a strong military presence, it was not as American as it is right now. Even street signs are in English.
And it's not only the street signs that are in English, it's what the street signs are named. The name of the street near the Vieques ferry port is Langley Drive. Langley, Virginia is the location of the CIA headquarters. When the Navy arrived in Vieques, their actions were often likened to a mini Nakba. They forcibly displaced all inhabitants from the eastern and western regions of the land, confining them to a narrow strip of land in the center. Today, it's not difficult to find old US military infrastructure on Vieques.
When the Navy was here, this side of the island was where they set up a lot of these bunkers where they actually lived. But this is just one of many in a whole row. They took this side of the island, obviously, to live. And then on the other side of the island, where to this day we're not allowed to go, where they had active bombing exercises.
During my time in San Juan, I attended a crypto event called Limitless Crypto, organized by someone named Pedro Rivera. Is a locally famous figure known as Blockchain Pedro. I only spent a few hours with a small group of people, but later I would understand just how unsettling and how strange the island's new, largely unwelcome class of Act 60 American inhabitants truly were, and how, despite their often toxic presence, they received preferential treatment from the Puerto Rican authorities and police.
Crypto Monday San Juan, Crypto Monday San Juan. Let's get a round of applause. Let's get a round of applause, please. I'm your host, Pedro Rivera.
Pedro Rivera, a native of New York City, has been a prominent figure in the Puerto Rican American crypto scene since the inception, describing himself on his website as a community builder, blockchain advocate, educator, advisor, and investor.
I want you guys to learn about Act 20, Act 22. You qualify for the same tax incentives that we all here taking advantage of. And come see me, Pedro Rivera, at Crypto Mondays, and we'll plug you into the network.
In San Juan, he has cultivated a network of so-called crypto bros who invest in each other's projects and party together, spearheading Crypto Mondays, a weekly networking or fundraising event typically hosted at one of Brock Pierce's many properties.
And give it up for Mr. Brock Pierce.
The event I attended was poorly organized, with terrible acoustics that made even the speakers impossible to hear, even near the stage. Participants hyped up next-generation blockchain that would supposedly revolutionize the island, while much of the population still lacks reliable electricity and water. Some speakers discussed the intersection of crypto and psychedelic drugs. I was told that after the event, Blockchain Pedro planned to host a party at his mansion in Dorado, the exclusive enclave where many Act 60 residents live, including Peter Schiff. At the Limitless Crypto event, someone casually mentioned to me that satanic garbage sometimes takes place at Blockchain Pedro's parties.
I like to tell people, crazy people, we get along, we find each other all over the world. So if I'm crazy, all of y'all crazy too. Let me get a round of applause in the house to be crazy.
Then perhaps it was for the best that, by the end of the evening, no one offered me a ride or shared the address of the party with me. 2 weeks later, on my way back to New York, someone I met at the crypto event sent me an article that was headlined as follows: "A person dies suspiciously during an apparent ritual in Dorado," read one of the reports. According to reports, 31-year-old Yashang Kui from China died in Blockchain Pedro's home during some sort of religious ritual.
Es todo un misterio lo que ocurrió dentro de una casa en Dorado. Se hizo una llamada a eso de las 4 de la mañana para decir de que había una emergencia y los paramédicos logran entrar a la urbanización, pero no pudieron darle auxilio a las personas que estaban allí adentro. En ese entonces, allí los paramédicos vieron con vida a este señor de origen asiático que no es residente aquí en Puerto Rico. Lo vieron con vida.
According to Puerto Rico's Criminal Investigation Corps, or CIC, the individuals present in the home were, quote, dedicated to the exchange of cryptocurrencies. Seemingly still high as a kite or in the throes of some sort of mental crisis, Blockchain Pedro launched a Facebook Live and proceeded to rant about his closeness, quote, to the light that, quote, puny beings could not understand.
You don't matter enough. You're not close enough to the source. I'll stop telling you what to do, you puny being, now, so you can understand this rhyme. You puny being, talk to your father. Have some respect. He'll teach you some manners on this day. Please stop.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Who are you? Why are you on my phone? Listen to me. I come from another planet. Do not disrespect me. You're a being beneath me. I'm a being of light. I want you at the gates of heaven. Immediately.
Despite being present at his home when a 31-year-old man died during a supposed ritual, Rivera was neither arrested nor even questioned by the police. The comments on a Telemundo report about the incident clearly reflect the attitude of so many Puerto Rican locals to this new class of crypto elites. In their view, Blockchain Pedro was never arrested or even investigated because he's a very well-connected Act 60 American. The evidence is in their face and the culprit, reads one comment. It's not in the government's interest to stop things like this. Dollars and cents, reads another. Because those who live there are under Law 22 and are protected by the PR government, another comment reads. Since the Dorado incident, Rivera's website has gone offline, returning a 404 error, but his frequent Instagram activity suggests he remains free and unbothered.
You don't even realize what I'm saying because you can't catch it. Literally don't understand. I'm thinking ahead of you.
The case of Pedro Rivera and Dorado highlights how this new class of wealthy American elites are descending on Puerto Rico, operating with apparent impunity and under a different set of laws, while local Puerto Ricans face the shock of austerity, displacement, and diminishing rights.
Left-wing politicians in the island want to use the people who came here for Act 60 as a scapegoat for the island's problems. And so we came here and made everything a lot better. But I think a lot of the politicians know where their bread is buttered at this point.
Because the locals will, that they're not going to give up their land without a fight. I know that for a fact.